Mary Elizabeth, what what is the organization's stance with the TEA potentially passing, um, having some religious curriculum involved in the public school system?
Texas Values is very pleased that the board recognized that students have the First Amendment right to learn about biblical references, especially when those are presented in an academic setting. So we're very happy about this preliminary vote today.
And when it's biblical studies, it's supposed to be a more, I guess, broad-based religious studies. No, it's supposed to be more inclusive. Is that right?
So, what was being proposed before the board this week was an English language arts curriculum that, whenever there was a reference to the Bible, which there are several references to the Bible in American literature, they went at liberty to explain where those references come from. So, this was not a world history course, it was an English language arts course that, whenever there was a reference to, let's say, Greek mythology or history, they also thought it was appropriate that whenever there were idioms or stories that reference the Bible, that they would explain those to the students.
Okay, gotcha. So that's important to put into context that it's not, parents should understand this is not necessarily um, teachers who are trying to invoke a language or a religion on students, but to further explain certain references in uh, studies that they're already in, such as history or literature.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only were there references to religious liberty and the First Amendment and why the founding fathers had those beliefs, but the most famous example that was brought up in the meeting was the letter that Dr. King wrote from the Birmingham jail. Him being a pastor, he had several references to biblical characters, but if you don't know those stories, then you would be lost in reading that. You would be like, who's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Dr. King doesn't explain that. So, they went at liberty to explain that that is a biblical reference from the book of Daniel, so students can have a better understanding of King's culture and why he would use that reference.
What would you like to say to parents who say that they don't feel the opponents who are saying it's too much context or too much biblical reference for I guess their comfort level?
Well, it's very important to know just how much the Bible has influence on the world and literature. The purpose of mentioning these is to make sure that students can have cultural competence, but also that reading comprehension that they need at the college level. So many, key required readings like Paradise Lost, or even uh, Dante's Inferno. Some of these are required readings, and if students those are just a few examples. If students don't know some, biblical references, then they would not be able to understand at that level.
And right now, currently, in the public school system, are teachers um, not explaining or they're explaining too much, I guess, is what the TEA is saying, that there has to be some guideline.
Well, the whole purpose for this overhaul or new way of selecting materials actually was influenced by state legislators who realized that reading comprehension scores were very low in our state. And so this was an opportunity to revamp how those materials are selected. And so these materials were shown to meet 100% of the TEKS, which is a first since 2011 when that law was repealed. So the main focus has been reading comprehension.
Okay. Anything else that you'd like to mention that I didn't ask you about? Any, what are your concerns if it doesn't pass later this week?
Certainly, if the board should have good reasoning and confidence that they can pass these materials and, respect the Establishment Clause. There's nothing in the First Amendment that prohibits how these materials are presenting these Bible stories as references and explanations. So the board member should have confidence in that. However, if they were to strip all of the religious references just because they're religious, that itself would violate the Establishment Clause and they would be violating the First Amendment.